Welcome everybody. Week on from the event. This is a media retrospective of the call to the Dail demonstration that took place last Wednesday, the 20th of September 2023 here in Dublin, Ireland. This will be a bit of a longer video than I'm used to posting, but I hope you'll stick with it as it does tackle a couple of the exaggerated mainstream government approved narratives that have come out in the media in the wake of the events of last Wednesday. Obviously, we've heard from numerous TDs, ministers and Taoiseach Leo Varadkar regarding the Assembly, where he claimed that Irish TDs are now under threat, and despite peaceful protest being essential, and a constitutional right I would add, that intimidation and violence took place. Despite the Taoiseach's statement that protest is essential to democracy, we have also seen headlines that Gardaí are investigating the protest as an offence against the state, and according to Fine Gael Senator Barry Ward, the Incitement to Hatred Act of 1989. This is particularly strange as no state officials or Gardaí were injured or faced any serious danger during the mostly peaceful demonstration. Varadkar's concerns were bolstered by Kerry TD Michael Healy-Rae, whose exaggerations in the mainstream media regarding the protest itself and those demonstrating is dramatised and not a fair reflection of events in comparison to similar and more extreme protests at Dáil Éireann in recent years. So let's have a listen to what Michael Healy-Rae described in a News Talk interview regarding what he and his intern from the United States experienced.
So forget about me now for a minute and forget about everybody, but think about that young girl. She's a student. She's here to learn about politics. She was shoved. She was pushed. And all I'll say to you about this is when that started, she had her mobile phone firmly inside in her pocket. And when that altercation finished, her mobile phone was gone. So that's her experience of her first day here in Dáil Éireann, and that is shocking.
The martyr that Healy-Rae is, he decides to solely focus on the well-being of the intern during the interview, which is interesting as he paid no real credence to her protection while within what he called a melee, not to mention the Garda escort. The decision to bring her through the crowd was completely unnecessary as there were several other exits from Dáil Éireann that he could have left through. The grinning faces of Healy-Rae and the intern as they prepared to walk through the crowd are both telling, which has led many to believe that this was a staged scenario or publicity stunt and was intended to incite the crowd following an earlier attempt by Senator Lorraine Clifford-Lee and her Garda escort. In an interview with Virgin Media's The Tonight Show regarding the demonstration, Clifford-Lee described her uneventful experience passing through the crowd as extremely intimidating, but following this decided to bring her 9-year-old daughter back to Leinster House after collecting her from school. Which doesn't sound like the logical actions that an extremely intimidated and responsible parent would take.
It was a very frightening experience.
There were a number of accusations of antisocial behaviour that Healy-Rae made against the Irish public. The first piece of disinformation that I'm going to address is the fact that he claimed his intern's phone was stolen by demonstrators. If you observe the following footage, despite the fact that Healy-Rae said the phone was placed firmly in her pocket, you can clearly see it fall out of the intern's pocket without any intervention from members of the public and was left on the ground. This is a complete lie that Michael Healy-Rae has spun in the mainstream media of Ireland. The inaccuracy of the statement has been brought to Healy-Rae's attention by numerous members of the public, but he has yet to make any amendments for this disinformation. So, moving on to some of the more extreme comments from our elected officials, Justice Minister Helen McEntee has sought a security review of those working in the Oireachtas. This follows what the Minister described as appalling scenes of violence and intimidation at Leinster House earlier this week. A bit extreme, Helen, but listen, we all know how you feel about hurty feelings regarding your hate speech bill. Taoiseach Micheál Martin said the behaviour of some of those involved in the demonstrations was almost fascist-like. This is coming from a man that as Taoiseach claimed Ireland would not need a referendum to join NATO, which sounds far more totalitarian and dictatorial to me. We also have Cathaoirleach of Shannon Éireann Senator Jerry Buttimer claiming, "I have never witnessed the behaviour and the thuggery from yesterday," just to address the concerns of violence and thuggery expressed by elected officials. This is the shoving question on Michael Healy-Rae, the only incident that could be regarded as violence that took place on the day. And if you're wondering why the Irish public might be upset with Michael Healy-Rae, he's been directly profiteering off immigration into Ireland, with his profits for housing migrants jumping from around €90,000 to nearly €700,000 in 2023, all of which has been published in the mainstream media in recent months, which would lead one to question whether the government were trying to antagonise demonstrators regarding Healy-Rae's exit, in light of his recently publicised profiteering from the open borders and immigration epidemic that we are currently experiencing here in Ireland, and that demonstrators were there to protest. Regarding Senator Jerry Buttimer's claims that these scenes have never been seen before, here's Healy-Rae being heckled in a similar way by protesters in 2013. There were no mainstream media articles, and there was no condemnation of the demonstrators that expressed their disapproval of Healy-Rae's policies. Having attended the protest myself, the only real violence or assaults witnessed were committed at the hands of the Gardaí Síochána, which you can see in the clip here, where a peaceful demonstrator was pushed to the ground with no provocation, resulting in the man sustaining a head injury. Also, regarding the comments of Senator Jerry Buttimer, I bring your attention to this 2010 demonstration at the gates of the Dáil, where sitting Sinn Féin TD Angus O'Snuddig and then TD turned Sinn Féin party leader Mary Lou MacDonald led a protest that forced entry and broke their way through the gates of Dáil Éireann into the premises. Mary Lou MacDonald was one of several TDs who appealed to the Irish public in February of 2023 to direct anger towards the government instead of refugees. I'd also like to highlight the 2020 demonstration at Dáil Éireann, where left-wing counter-protesters led by People Before Profit and Sinn Féin attacked peaceful demonstrators, resulting in mayhem breaking out on the streets in front of the Dáil. Not to mention the cement truck that tried to ram through the gates of Dáil Éireann back in 2010. While I'm not trying to condone any of the outlined antisocial behaviour discussed so far, these past events do indicate an exaggeration about last Wednesday's events on behalf of the Irish elected officials and media. Again, having attended the demonstration last Wednesday, the only thuggery I witnessed was on behalf of the Gardaí Síochána towards members of the public, including heavy-handed policing and arrests of peaceful women and elderly women, not to mention the heavy-handed arrests of 3 individuals, 2 of them women, before the protest had even gotten underway. These scenes were reminiscent of the brutal policing in Ballybrack from July 2023, where Gardaí attacked and attempted to incite numerous local peaceful protesters at the scene. 2 hours after Healy Rae's 3pm exit from Dáil Éireann, we saw a man at the Marion Street gate being pushed to the ground by Gardaí. This man's leg was in a cast and he was also on a crutch. Gardaí stood over this man and laughed at him while he was in pain on the ground after they overheard the news that it would take 2 hours for an ambulance to respond to the attack. Finally, I'd like to address leader of the Green Party, Eamon Ryan's claims that there's a lot of mad, crazy conspiracy going on.
Where there's a lot of mad, crazy conspiracy and polarising, divisive hate speech and disinformation and fake news. Those sort of protests are a direct attack on the Irish Constitution, on the Republic, on the idea that we're all equal. We're all sovereign in our country. How dare they, is what I'd say.
Regarding the concerns of demonstrators in relation to hate speech legislation and open borders, after seeing the spin the Irish mainstream media have put on the events of last Wednesday, it does appear there is a mad conspiracy regarding state-approved disinformation going on, and the government don't seem to like the fact that the Irish people are becoming aware of it. Ryan's claim that demonstrators' concerns are divisive is again exaggerated, as they are based in freely accessible facts, and when he wants to leverage conspiracy, disinformation and fake news, I don't think he's paying you, the Irish public, the respect you deserve, because all you need to do is turn on an international mainstream media channel, witness what they're discussing in the US Senate regarding media censorship, or what has been exposed by the Facebook files, the Twitter files, and everything else that's coming out in the international media about the pandemic, vaccines, and the US and EU migration epidemic. Micheál Martin has since validated the demonstrators' concerns about migration on the 26th of September 2023 in relation to the impact migration is going to have on the upcoming budget.
Also, we're very conscious that in the context of the budget, progress has been made, but it is a very challenging environment with very, very significant increase in population in the country over the last number of years.
Our government is deceiving us, and what has come out in the mainstream media regarding last Wednesday at Dáil Éireann is just another example of how the government want to paint their electorate in a bad light if they do not approve of certain policies that the public were never consulted about and that our government are seemingly afraid to face up to public opinion on. I hope this has been insightful for you. Having attended the protests on Wednesday and seeing the overall peaceful atmosphere, apart from 2 minor events that have been dramatised in the mainstream media, it is clear how divergent the mainstream media spin is to the actual events that took place on the day. I hope that this will open your eyes to how our government and the bought and sold mainstream media in Ireland will say whatever they need to in order to exaggerate a narrative that suits the government objectives incoming from the EU and the UN.
How dare they?
How dare they, is what I'd say.